Thank you, Dharmarajan, for those views. See, I think so. What the takeaway is that investment has to be complete one. And today, associates are looking at the experience. It's no more about, tell me a little bit about your career development, tell me a little bit about your policies, tell me a little bit about your welfare activities that you do in the organization. It's all about, are you able to give me a good experience till the time that I am there with you in the organization. So having said that, let's move on to some specific pointed examples and experiences. So my first question is to you, Murli. From an overall organizational perspective, do increments and hikes actually motivate teams when measurement is done through the performance evaluation and it's relative to each other? You're comparing one against other. I think traditionally that is what, in terms of mentality and how it is looked at, it's my comparison with somebody else. So does it really motivate, and does it really really make a difference?
Yeah, so I want to kind of differentiate two things here. Performance evaluation is done at the individual level. Obviously, performance, you build a competitive spirit within the organization. So you do compare people and you do stack rank. Unfortunately, what happened is over the years they've used this performance evaluation for distributing increments and bonuses. I think pay for performance, right? I mean, that was the motivation. So that eventually led to stack ranking people, fitting them on the normal curve, and also the evaluation itself became very subjective. That was at least in the industry that I come from, that was the problem. So one way of solving this problem is to ensure that the evaluation is very objective, and that's what we do in Virtusa. And what we do is we have what we call as the leaderboards. So for an individual, for example, at the junior most level, as soon as you come in and log into your systems, you get to see what is your performance till date vis-a-vis somebody else in that group. So you get a leaderboard, so you know where do you stack rank yourself, where are you placed. And always the endeavor of the individual is to top the charts, right? So they always work towards getting onto the top. And so that kind of builds a competition. But when it comes to increments, I don't think increments alone can be a motivating factor. Like the other panelists talked about, it is a hygiene factor. We need to ensure that my salary increases, year on year. That is an expectation, and that is necessary. But it's not sufficient to keep me in the organization. There are other motivation factors that people look for. For example, is my contribution valued? Or do I get to do different things in the organization? Do I get to experience different parts of the organization? Can I work in different geographies? So these are some of the aspirations people have, and those are, I think, motivating factors than getting regular increases year on year.
Thank you, Murli. I think, how do we really meet the aspirational needs, and what are companies really doing about it? Aspirations are different sections of your workforce have different aspirations. So, in terms of looking at it in totality, how do you really balance that, and how are companies really looking at? From that, Dharmaraj, if you look at really measuring what employees want beyond compensation, how has really L&T evolved through this process in terms of what is it, how do you really measure, what really employees want moving away from compensation, and what are some of those 2-3 things that you think L&T has done as part of your restructuring exercises, as part of your new initiatives in terms of looking at it with a different viewpoint?
Thank you. Of course, we do have the engagement surveys, which is a very easiest way of understanding what the employee wants. But that apart, L&T is a very strong culture of mentoring, and because we have projects. I'm talking about L&T construction. Basically, L&T construction has got over 300 projects spread all over the country and abroad. So a project will be at a site little away, and it's a small community, the people there. So around 60 to 100, sometimes in bigger projects like the Mumbai airport or the Delhi airport, etc. It may be larger numbers. So it's a very cohesive group. Every project typically goes through, you may be aware, 4 stages. the forming, the storming, the norming, and the performing. And at the end of this, when they come to the performing stage, there's a complete cohesion, and it works beautiful to see them working at that time. And so this connectivity helps us to understand through an upward communication process what really is required. That's one way, apart from, as I said, the engagement initiatives. So we are able to periodically review. For example, I will give you, we have this ESOP system, which we used to give, and ESOP is once in it's a 5-year ESOP, and it's frozen once you are given the amount, the number of shares, and then we found people want not that way. They want something which is more immediate. So we converted that into a quarterly allowance and an annual retention pay. One example, we accepted the needs of or the expectations. We had the various allowances in our package with various each dependent on some event or some contingency. We simplified all that. We have what is called a flexi pay, particularly for the supervisory staff, executive staff, junior management staff. We have the flexi pay, where there's a more option. It's almost like what the new generation, the new generation or new age companies kind of provide. So these some examples I'm giving you. Plus we are always alive to the needs, and we have various committees and various different panels which go through recommendations, and we work on it. Of course, there is a benchmarking with the industry, what's happening in the industry. But L&T is not just a bellwether stock. It's also a bellwether organization from HR perspective. You may be knowing that the first appraisal system was started by L&T in India, frankly, long back. Dr. T.V. Rao instituted that. So we go a little beyond that, and we try to address. We try to it's just about engineering. It's a company. It talks about imagineering. So we have to also imagineer the requirements and propose it. And we don't mind experimenting and failing. So when we start with something and we don't find a response, we give it up. I'll give you one example. We have the insurance coverage for the parents. Now I know most companies don't have that. There's a modern theory, it's a family for us is the guy and his wife or spouse, or the lady with her husband as a spouse and the kids. But we said no, you are going to work in site, you are young people, and your parents are somewhere in some, either in a village or some city far away, but they need to be taken care of. So we have an insurance coverage, and this is a big hit among all the Gen Y. Can you imagine? Like you said about the giving, the earlier presentation you made. This is about the taking care of the family when the person is not there. Similarly, we have many other, I can go on giving many examples. It's all coming out of this culture of the mentoring and the process of upward communication and the very requirement of a project operation. That makes it all the more. Plus, we have the formal systems, as I told you, the engagement services, etc. And I gave you some examples of how we kind of modify and we customize those, or we restructure some of these benefits.
Satya, if you look at the industry that you come from, one of the things that is widely described is the fact that, OD interventions are the best in manufacturing, are the best in the industry that you come from. It is actually customized. It makes a meaningful impact on the person to whom the intervention is based on. So looking at all of that and what is happening from an analytics perspective, how do you really use data for decision making and looking beyond the compensation? What is it that you do? What are some of the things that you do to using data where we will get meaningful inferences to make larger level decisions on the people front?
See, ideally we get data on two fronts. One is qualitative data and the second one is the quantitative data. Largely the quantitative data gives you an approach but doesn't give you the feel. But human decisions are based on larger time is judgment and feel. Where we do get this data from? The data comes like what Dharmarajan has said, largely from the engagement survey, and what we do after the engagement survey, how we practice it. In a practice that what we have is that after the engagement survey, we say that the manager is solely responsible for engagement of the team. So after the engagement survey, every team gets a score, and after the results are out, each team spends minimum of 4 hours on discussing various things, why this has happened, why this has not happened. Collectively 800 teams, 4 hours, 400 man days in a year, that we qualitatively spend, what is that happening? It is nothing but understanding the pulse. The other part to it is quantitatively, a lot of data, we get attrition data, we get data from, why this compensation is like this, market benchmarking some compensation. These all are one part. So what we largely try to do is that our industry is more of cyclical in nature. We give 7.5% GDP to India. 7.5% of India GDP comes from automobile sector. Anything happens in economy, we are very shaky. We have to control the cost structures. We need to have our business going on. In this scenario, can afford to give everything which is on compensation. Compensation, like is rightly put, is more of is a return that what we are giving for the work done. But is there anything else? That anything else on the data perspective, more we believe in comes from the feel, the connect that what the managers has with the teams, largely. Any quantitative approach can go wrong, and we have experienced that it has gone wrong because, say, compensation, we are at 66th percentile, so make it 75th percentile. But we lost many people because talent buying is on spree. If I give X, somebody will pay X square and take the people. For the right people, there is no breadth. So what it really makes us to be competitive is that stay engaged with the teams, stay engaged with the employee, and continuously somebody need to speak to them. What an employee looks in an organization largely is two. It's that how the company is doing, how I am doing in the company, how an employee will know about it. We have a lot of mailers from CEOs, newspaper articles, we give marketing ads, everything. Employee gets to know about it. But how strong we are in explaining the employee that how he or she is doing, that makes more meaningful to those people that to see, yes, this is a larger picture, there I stand here, so I need to move here. There the organization comes in and supports in terms of competence development, in terms of any other support required for the person to move from one stage to another stage. It's a journey, it's a process, and this all data comes from more of getting engaged, manager how they are getting engaged, and how HR as a facilitator gets into it and gets the pulse out of it. I may sound a little bit old, but there is no other go. All quantitative things gets challenged at one point of time. There is somebody that I do better, somebody else do it better. If there is nothing available, cut, copy, paste. Somebody else is best practice, I copy it and do it. But the real thing happens only on how I get connected to my employees. Is it what the differentiator? On very, very qualitative parameters. The quality comes from the feel, the general understanding, give the voice, listen to them completely. What we have done is that every manager has to essentially spend 3 hours in 2 months' time listening to their team, which is called, we may call it as open house, we may call it skip meeting, whatever it is, whatever name it can be called. But the essence is that you need to listen to your people first and submit it, come back to the management teams and discuss it about very openly. Good part of it is that in our engagement survey, we don't have any question related to compensation. So we don't get anything biased over about it. We more talk about the manager effectiveness, the culture of the organization, more so with the how your infrastructure has been given to you, how safe you are, how is your well-being doing it. So we try to create a well-being as a state of mind, that how you feel, how you create your state of mind towards your own work, your own team, and towards the organization. This is what that qualitatively practice that we try to do.
Thank you, Satya. I think, being able to emotionally connect with your workforce has a huge impact on, the ability of teams to connect with each other, to trust each other. And as an investment, when you look at some of the not so quantifiable things, I think that emotional connect makes a huge impact in, teams with their managers, with their functional heads, etc. Soundarajan, flexibility and work life are today seen as very important factors. How do you really integrate that into the work culture of the organization? Because today, in terms of the order in terms of work-life balance and flexibility, they rank quite high up. In one of the surveys, I think surprisingly, one of the findings in that survey was people demanded good behavior from their managers. You know, it came out. It was a surprising finding rather than compensation and many of the other factors. This was ranked amongst the topmost things. You know, so really from a flexibility and work-life balance perspective and the culture of the organization, how do you really integrate? Because I'm sure this must be a huge challenge for the industry that you work for in terms of, you know, integrating both these into the culture of the organization.
Yeah, actually, as in the opening remark, as I mentioned, I still do not know whether how many people would really wanted to have work-life balance in the sense flexibility. If you look at it, the flexi time concept, just to get a sense, how many of you would you like to have flexi hours in your work life? Can you raise your hands? We are what, about 50% or less than that? Am I right? It is less than 50%. Okay, so there are two things. One is individual choice, and second is industry or the organization's ability to offer it. As I told in the opening remarks, if you ask, Jacob, can you give flexi time to his doctors? What will happen? Everybody will die in heart attack. There is certain section of industry or certain sectors which can't really afford to have flexi time. But definitely work-life balance becomes critical. While flexi time, in my opinion, is one aspect of work-life balance, but flexi time is not the end of all. Point number one. Point number two, today at least my experience shows that people don't leave organization. They come in the morning, early morning before anybody comes, and they are willing to work till all goes home. Why is that? Do you experience it? There are cases. So there are section of people who want flexi time, yes. There are section of people who don't want to go home, whatever problem they have at home. Okay. There are section of people who are fine with 9 to 6. So it's again, organization is willing to give, but employees are not really wanting to do that. But when it comes to work-life balance, everybody needs it, mainly because that's the kind of environment today we are in. The stress that we create for ourselves actually forces us to do something. We create our own expectation, or we create expectation around us among the people, and everybody run after something without knowing where they are running. And then you are in the boiling pot. So what do? You need an exit route. Therefore, organizations have the responsibility of ensuring that people are taken care in terms of ensuring that their work life is balanced, whether the employee likes or not. If somebody says that I don't mind working 12 hours, please don't encourage. In my experience, and we are seeing that happening. I think some 2 weeks back, one CEO jumped from some floor. Why is it happening? Unfortunate. So what is he achieved in life? So as an individual, you need to think, and as an organization, we have a responsibility to do that. See, CSR and whatever you do outside organization, in my opinion, comes next. Your own employee who is just sitting in front of you, being part of you, working with you to take the organization forward, you must kind of take care of them. That's primary responsibility before you get into CSR. That's my individual view, personal view. I'm not representing my organization here. So therefore, there are ways by which we can enhance the capability of the people so that they are smart and able to work within 8 hours, whatever they could do best. Provide opportunity for them to take leave. In my earlier organization, we are forced to take leave. You can't have the encashment, accumulation, all the stuff is not there. You must go on leave. There must be a mechanism of annual medical checkup, and we classify people into red, amber, green, and then follow up with the red people saying that, boss, your health is not good, work on something, help them, facilitate them, put up a gym if required. And people don't have time to do that, and they don't have intention or otherwise facility to do that. These are all very, very fundamental things. Food, for example, provide a good, healthy food. it is not going to cost our organization, whatever industry you are in. So if you don't take care of people who spend most of his daytime, awakening time in the office or workplace, where else will go? What else will do? So there is lot more can be done, which in my opinion we just started doing industries. Many industries do not see this anywhere near this, and all this we are talking about is, I don't know, 10, 20, 25% of our population. There is about 70, 75% of our population who are not connected with anything, work life, good salary, good life, nothing. That is unfortunate situation today in India. I think it's a huge subject, but if you want to introduce flexi time to help you to do the work-life balance, you need to know whether your industry can afford. You need to know whether people are interested. Don't force on them. And you also need to know how do you implement it, because the many places they implement and it backfires. You need to have a committed employee. You need to have a clear understanding with the employee, saying what you will do, when you will do, when you will be available, when you will not be available. All those things little tricky. And if everybody chooses to come in their own time, when will they meet together and do something? So a lot more work has to happen before actually you test it, and test it before actually implementing. That's my experience and learning.
There's a book, Employees First, Customers Second. I don't know, many of you may have read that book already, but I think there's a lot of what Soundarajan talked about. I think a lot of things are also echoed in that book. Okay, let's do one more round of these quick questions and then we'll open up to the audience. Murli, we've all said so many things, so many points. We've said there's diversity, you have a multi-generational workforce, different aspirations, different demands. How do you really study, incorporate all, and how do you really make it happen? Demands are just getting more and more. I mean, each one, different categories of employees, different demands, different aspirations. So I think there's a whole lot of things, data out there, people, what they want in their mind, what they really look forward to in an organization. So with all of these things happening, I mean, how is it possible to really understand all these different, buckets, these different nuggets, and then, incorporate all of it and then come out with something?
Yeah, so I think multi-generational workforce have been existing in the past. They will continue to exist. Like we talked about it earlier, only the context has changed. So just to give you an example, when I started my career in the IT industry, my Sunday evening computing experience was worse than my Monday morning computing experience. I used to come to office to use a computer. That's how I started. Very archaic, right? That talks about my age. But today, if you look at kids, their computing experience at home is much better than what is provided in the office. Most of the offices block Facebook, you can't do stuff, many sites are blocked, things like that. So now, so there was this problem, right? If a guy goes to his house on the weekend, will he come back to work when the week starts? So we have created a similar environment within the organizational network where they can actually have a social life, right? So we have a Facebook-like environment. We use platforms where they can actually engage. Now, so what happens is in the organization, when this platform was rolled out, we see a lot of young people getting onto the platform. They are there, they're talking about everything and anything that is happening in the organization. But the older generation is not on it. Managers think that this is a time waster, right? So we do have those challenges. One way of overcoming this challenge is what we call as reverse mentoring. Mentoring not necessarily has to be done by a senior person to a junior person, but a junior guy can also mentor a senior person, right? Especially they are very gadget savvy, they're technology savvy. So can we think of a reverse mentoring program? That is one. Second thing is we also have, like I talked about it earlier, we have gamified the entire performance metrics. So if we walk into any of our offices, I mean, in fact, even some of our customers are really surprised at this. We have leaderboards. So if you go, there are television screens where the leaderboards are there, and on the leaderboards, you have sales leaders' figures. So if you're a sales guy and your actual achievements for the quarter is put up, so you know who is lagging, who is leading. Similarly, your delivery leaders, their metrics are put up. So everything is really open. Now this is not if you look at the older generation, they don't really like it, right? But the younger generation wants this, so it's really transparent, and also it creates a competition. Now, for example, if a junior person comes and sees his manager's name on the leaderboard and he's lagging, then they start going and talking about how can we get our unit on top. So these kind of conversations happen, and all these conversations happen not in person. Mostly it's done on the systems. You have, like I said, we have a platform which is very Facebook-like. So there are ideas put up, discussions happen, and people really want to top the charts. So there is this tension that's created between generations in the workplace, but that is a creative tension, and because of which there is improvement in performance, and people really want to keep improving their performance so that you lead the charts. That is one thing that has happened. Coming to the compensation per se, I think that is a problem that we are currently struggling with. A challenge that we have is for this multi-generational workforce, how do we really come up with a compensation structure that kind of meets their needs? Typical traditional ways, you look at the grades or the designations, and then you come up with a salary structure. And then also there are certain statutory requirements that you have to meet.